Hello, hello. I am back. And I am prepared to share my meditation. Um so I've been trying to do this regular, but I guess it's just when it comes to me, I just have to share it because it's so much. So I hope you enjoy this. I'm trying to figure out these platforms, but I'm just going to talk today um about war. And I am actually going to read most of it because I just wrote it down as I thought about it. And I just wanted to share it in written form, but it wouldn't go through. So I figured I'd make a video on it. Okay. So, why do people have wars? Why do people fight wars? Um, it's usually basically with the premise that you are wrong and I am right. So, if we want to end wars, we have to teach our children that they can have an opinion and they can also have a personal sense of right and wrong. But they must have humility to realize that they don't know everything and that all that we know could be wrong. And that really hit me. But yes, sometimes we think humility is saying, oh my gosh, I don't know anything. Or, lying to ourselves and saying that, oh, I'm so humble because I'm nobody. But that's not humility, that's low self-esteem. Humility is recognizing that you might be wrong and there might be things that you just don't know. And that's okay. Yeah. So, when people go to war, whether it's a war within themselves or war like you see in the world today, they lack humility and they lack a specific quality. They lack they are not able to yield. So I did some research and the word yield means to give up, right? And so I went further and I realized that it means give up in the sense of produce. So it's not give up like, oh, whatever, but it's a production. So when a woman has a baby, she gives up or she produces a baby, not because she is like backing down, but she has to give up or give out so that the so that the baby can be produced. Or so when you think about production, that's an art of creation. It's a surrendering process. So the creative process, it has to have a certain amount of surrender to it. So to create, you have to yield and you have to surrender your resistance to a power that is greater than yours. So when you stop fighting or resisting, you can then create. And because creation, you have to surrender because creation goes past the logical mind. So the act of giving up produces the act of giving up, the act of surrendering allows something to be produced. So whenever you get into resistance, whether you're resisting a person, an idea, a thought, that creates war, whether it's within yourself or outside. But what I talk about a lot in the holistic space is the war that people are fighting within themselves. And there's a lot of resistance. Um, Now, giving up, this is what I wrote. Giving up is not the same as inaction or not doing anything. It does not mean that you're not going to do anything, and it does not mean that you're now going to go in the opposite direction than what you were resisting. It just means that you stop engaging as an opposing force. So sometimes, and we talked a lot about the parasympathetic nervous system, which stimulates which comes from the nerve that stimulates that rest and relaxation piece. So when you stop, just stop, not necessarily go in the next direction and not resist, just stop, right? You stop that war that's happening on the inside. So competition is an internal thing. And where we get this competitive ideology is from the education system. So school, when we that's when we actually start thinking that we're not good enough, because when we enter into school, then the way we are educated shows all our deficiencies, because it starts comparing us to whether it's other kids or other comparing our thoughts to other people's thoughts. So that's when we start having like really low self-esteem. And then we start thinking that the consumption or taking in of information, that this starts giving us a dogmatic perspective on life. So because I heard, because I learned, because I studied, because I memorized really, really well, right? Then we start to think that we know. But memorization is not knowing, because your memory of something, the memory of a fact, right? It doesn't give you insights into what that thing is. It just tells you about it. It doesn't tell you what it truly is. So knowing, really knowing something, it can only be done experientially, like meaning that you have to experience something to really know it. And that is why everything that is not experienced, we say, or it's not tested, it hasn't been tested, it hasn't been experienced. We call that in the science world a hypothesis, not a law. So until you experience something and test it repeatedly, then it becomes a law. But if you just sit and you think and you memorize, or you make hypothetical situations, that is not a law, right? So I'm just gonna break down that scripture, because even in the Bible, Jesus, he broke a lot of laws, right? And it's because there's something that is higher than even a law. So you have a hypothesis, which is just like, I think, I've heard, right? You didn't experience it. But when you actually experience something and you test it and you prove it, right? And it becomes a law, that's still not the end of the game. That's still not the final step. And we know it's not the final step because Jesus broke laws, right? So this is just the thoughts that I had. Like, even when something is tried and true and tested and becomes a law, right? It is still not the complete picture. Now, in our society, when something becomes a law, we equate that to being a fact, right? But as I was thinking about this, I was thinking, oh, so what is higher? What is even higher than a law? Because usually a law is really important. But that's when I went into deep diving into principles. So a law is different from a principle, because the law is, I have this hypothesis, I try it, I test it, all these times it came out to be true, so now I created a law. But a principle, it surpasses a law, because it is the basic fundamental unit of truth. And the reason why I thought that there is something higher than a law is because if you take, for instance, the law of gravity, that is a law, but there are things in nature that defy the law of gravity. So not just Jesus break laws, like laws are broken all the time. So I was thinking about principles, how we say that the law is truth, but in reality, if you have a principle that is above law, it says from the dictionary that the that a principle is a basic or fundamental unit of truth. So truth is fact. And it took me a while to think about this, but we think laws are facts, but principles are facts. So a principle is not just something right versus wrong, because that's law. Law says this is right and this is wrong, right? But a principle goes to an even higher level of understanding. And what is really interesting about a principle is that it comes from not studying in a classroom, but it comes from paying attention to the basic processes of life and then using that observation, thinking about it, and using it to form a conclusion about life. So I'll say that again. A principle is a high level of understanding and truth of life that comes from paying attention to the basic life processes and then using it to form conclusions about life. So this is the ancient classroom. That's what I call it. Because that's how they used to teach children. That's how people learned, by observing nature, right? And within nature, you have principles, life principles. And it's so simple that even a child could do it. So this is what I said. Education, which is the accumulation of information, is very important. But the process of our system to get that information into us as students, it pulls us in our ego. So instead of being aware, right, of what can possibly happen within life, right, it becomes not just an awareness, but it becomes the information we take in becomes the standard of what is. And then our identity then is validated by knowing of that standard. So that inflames the ego, and then the ego then blocks learning because we think we already know. So then there is no possibility of even looking or paying attention to life itself. So it's like you become satiated or full when you're really starving because you think you know all that there is to know, or you think what you know is the complete story or the complete truth, or you think it's fact and it really isn't. So because you think you know, the possibility of even getting to know more, you won't be able to, because you think you know. You won't even explore, you won't even pay attention because you think you know. So when we surrender, it allows us to drop the ego, and then we realize that we could be filled with facts of life and not just information about life. So this is why when people are at war with other people or within themselves, or even just moving through life angry and hostile, it's a very counterproductive way to live, because when you destroy another person, you will always end up destroying yourself. To destroy another life is like one of the greatest acts of ignorance, because what we need is within that other person that we seek to destroy. The answer for our own life is within another person. And I think that's why the scriptures say that it's important to have hospitality towards strangers, because unknowingly you may be entertaining angels. The very person who God sends to teach you and to help you grow we turn around and we eliminate them because they disrupt our internal ego, which we identified as ourself. And and I think that's why people say you have to be careful around people who are very envious, because it's easy for them to, they may feel inferior around you. So they try to one up you and make you feel inferior, and they can convince you and everybody else that you really are inferior to them. But the reality of it is they will never be, that feeling of superiority that they're going out for, they will never really be superior, because the thing that they needed to make them of a superior quality or to elevate them as a human being was actually in you, the one they tried to destroy. You were sent to elevate them, but they actually destroyed you. And so now they actually took away their ability to be, they actually took away the ability to actually elevate, which shouldn't cause anger, but it should really provoke the feelings of compassion, where you feel sorry for that person, because now because they destroyed what was sent to elevate them, they're not able to progress in life. So it's just these are just some thoughts I'm sharing. But as a human, like, we really have to be aware that we want to be more concerned with being than feeling. Like, you can feel superior, but it doesn't mean that you are superior. So if you're more concerned about being superior, you wouldn't fight, you would collaborate because that person can help you. And even if they bring up ugly things, that's, maybe working through those ugly things is what's going to actually help you be a superior human being. So this is what I was thinking. We feel good about helping other people, but we must sit and ask ourselves, like, really cold hard facts. Sometimes you say, oh, I was able to help this person, but sometimes you have to just sit down and say, did I really help them? Like, is that my feeling? Do I feel good because I actually helped them? Or am I feeling good because I feel like I did something that was helpful? And then sometimes when you're in a situation and you're doing things and other people are not doing anything, they don't have any intention to do anything, because they didn't have any intention for that person. So because you're doing something, then they just jump on and they start validating, oh, you're doing something, but you didn't really do anything. You didn't really help, right? Or you didn't really help in the way that you wanted to help. And so this is the question I ask myself. Did I truly help, or do I just feel like I was helpful because I did something? And now everyone around me, because of my position or because of my title, now they validate me. And because they themselves have no true intention to even help, so they never even do a fraction of what you do. So you did like 150 in their eyes, but in your eyes, you just did 50, and they are comfortable in their ego, and they're commending me so that I feel comfortable in my ego, like, yeah, you did a good job, you did what you were supposed to do. But it just really made me think, like, did I really align with what I set out to do? my original intention? Even if it was a good job, was that my intent for the person? And even if it was, did they receive it? You know, did they really receive it? So this is what I'm going to read what I wrote. So I said, we must stop comparing ourselves to other people, and we must release or surrender our ego and give up this fight for right. We are all right, and we are all at the same time wrong. We're right and we're wrong. So the question is, what are you truly producing? And if it's nothing, then then we must yield so that what truly matters become birthed or produced. And if we are producing something and it is not aligned with our intention, we have to give up or surrender our thoughts to a power higher than ours. And it might just be from the place we least expect it. So I really feel strongly about these thoughts, and I don't know if I'm conveying them at the depth of reception, at the level that I'm receiving them. But inside our human being, we are fighting and we're struggling and we are aiming and we're striving and we're trying, and we have this fight for what we think is right. But to produce what we really want to see in the world, we really have to stop fighting. And I talk about this because it goes against everything that we have ever been told in our competitive society, where you have to struggle and you have to fight and you have to, really strive and really, fight this war for what is right. And I guess that's why wars never stop, because we had this thought that we need to fight. So we go and we fight for all these things, and really stopping is what produces what we really want to see in the first place. Stopping the fight, pausing and allowing the birth. It made me think about when I was giving birth to my baby. You struggle and you push and you push and you push, right? But when the baby actually starts coming, they say, stop pushing. And stopping the pushing actually allows the baby and the processes to flow through you, and then the baby is delivered. So we are at a time in society where people have fought and they have fought and they have fought, and now it's time to stop pushing. It's time to yield and allow spirit to produce and bring forth, and yield or give up, like give it up, right? Give it up, yield to what God's Spirit is producing for us as humans. So I don't know who needed to hear this, but I needed to hear it. And it's, sometimes we tell ourselves so many things, but we tell people things, but sometimes we need to hear ourselves, and sometimes we need to speak and listen to ourselves. So I don't know who needed to hear it. I needed to hear it. I shared it. Pause, stop, really enter into that rest and allow, God's Spirit to work out whatever it's working in you to completion. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you later. Enjoy your evening.